It's 10,000 BC, there are saber-toothed giant wolves, mammoths and a lot of other beasts out there, but so are you. Far Cry Primal is a Far Cry game that's no-brainer when you pick up the game or watch a video about it. The game feels in that way similar to every Far Cry game after the first one. In this game you are a Wenja, a last of them actually. But everything's gonna change since you enter the Oros Valley. Everything is perfect in there for living wise. But when there is a perfect place, there is also a competition. There are two rival tribes, cannibals and flame ritualists. But when that sounds bad, you just think about the age you're living in. There isn't modern socialistic features to make everyone act in a certain way. It's brutal for everyone, even inside your own tribe, and only the fittest survive. Naturally, your mission is to take and make Venture blossom. Developer team has fully immersed themselves to the age and time of the game, which makes it so great. I personally enjoyed it a great lot because of this fact. The language is created by professionals to express historically accurate language of the time, for example. There are a few minor mistakes that I noticed, for example alligators, which I don't believe were in that time period, in that time geological area, and wild dogs appearance confuses me a little bit. About the gameplay mechanics. In the beginning everything around you feels dangerous and you might even die if you happen to venture outside of your home at night. I personally died to a pack of wolves because I thought, well, this is Far Cry game overall, it's not that hard. But that all ends pretty soon after you have done some quests and leveled up your items and weapons. Um, then you can pretty much overpower or at least defend yourself against any beast there. The game is moderate at the difficulty in the end, maybe even easy on normal difficulty. I played it in normal difficulty and I didn't find anything hard to do there, to be precise. But that all depends how and what kind of situation you get yourself into. How I mean, what kind of pet you're using, what kind of are you just rushing into the enemy camp because that will get you killed, or are you scouting with your oval and marking enemies and infiltrating with your pets. But all depends on you. That's the thing what I love about in Far Cry games, is nowadays they are just let the player do what they want to do. There is a lot of to do actually in Far Cry Primal and I enjoyed most of it. There were few frustrating areas, but those were just minor areas like 2-3 minutes in certain caves. Collecting map markers was nice and sometimes a bit challenging. Some may say time consuming and waste of time even. In the caves, which are claustrophobic and like labyrinths sometimes. Side missions can feel mundane, but they are fun to experiment with other animals, and you get to get experience and you can level up your skills, and you usually get some loot in the beginning, which I highly recommend. If you play this game, pick up the loot in the beginning of the game, because that will help you in the end game a lot. Collecting resources is a good tactic. Uh, After about the midway of the game I didn't do that so much, but for this to be enjoyable, please disable gathering animations on the options and it's all good. You might think that Stone Age doesn't give player enough to gear to keep you interested in the game's combat, for example, but there is a variations of weapons, and since you level them up they gain more power etc. And funny thing is that I found myself using the first bow most of the time in the entire game. I upgraded it fully, and then I just went with. Uh, it was great after upgrading and before that even. Since there aren't any vehicles, how do you get by riding your saber tooth, for example? Animation and the age you live is easily noticeable when you're fighting with the others. Bones crunch, blood sprouts. It's gore at its best since it's the realistic limits and your spears and clubs ain't the cleanest ways to kill, so that's just how the world rolls. Taming the animals give you benefits depending on the animal companions. For example, a bear is a great tank, and any kind of cat is a great stealth takedown companion. It gives you enough variables to make it useful even in the midst of combat when changing pet to give yourself the much needed tank when you are in a jam. Sounds of the environment are great, and sometimes in the north the dead silence is what you want to hear, because that's just how it is in the cold north. It can howl a bit, but when you hear that branch snatching, you know someone's watching. Animals sound very real. They can sometimes get into quite a loop though. For example, my wolf once howled 4 times in a row, which was weird since it does the animations of the howling too, so yeah, and there's only one animation for that. In the end, everyone who is or even isn't interested in first-person shooters should at least give this a try. It's so far one of my favorite games of the year. I love prehistoric animals and studies about those kind of things, and this brings it to life, like Jurassic Park did to 4 dinosaurs, though this is more realistic view on everything. If you're an adventure games friend, then it's great for you too. You find over 20 hours to do here if you are an adventurer like me, but keep in mind at this time period most of the people wield bows and spears, so you might end up with an arrow in the knee.